Welcome to Thriving Through, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the world of independent consulting and shows you exactly what you need to do to build a successful consulting practice. I'm AJ, I'm your host, and each week I dive deep into the real life stories of self-employed consultants who have transformed their expertise into thriving businesses. Now, this isn't about glossy success stories or overnight miracles. This is about the grit, the strategies, and the resilience it takes to build a consulting practice that is not only financially rewarding, but also personally fulfilling. From navigating the feast or famine cycle to landing dream clients, from managing the unique challenges of entrepreneurship to creating systems that support your business, I'm covering it all. Each episode features a candid conversation with consultants who've been where you are. We share their stories, their insights, and the hard-earned lessons that transform their business into a thriving practice. So whether you're just starting out, looking to level up as a consultant, or wanting to reignite your passion for consulting, this podcast is for you. It's your weekly dose of inspiration, insight, and strategies that will pump you up and motivate you for the rest of the week. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and get ready to learn, get inspired, and most importantly, to thrive. Welcome to the Thriving Through podcast. I'm your host, AJ Riedel, and today I am delighted to introduce Mike Wood. Mike, let's start out by telling us what the name of your company is.
Yeah, the name of the company is legalmorning.com. Been in business for approximately 15 years now. We do consulting for digital marketing. We do a lot in the Wikipedia space, search engine optimization, reputation management, do a lot with companies getting their digital marketing departments going. So it's been a long journey, but it's been great. And thanks for having me on. We had a great conversation last week, so excited to get this on tape.
Yeah, and I have some follow-up questions from that conversation as we go through today. First question is a why question. Why did you become a self-employed consultant?
Well, kind of didn't have a choice. I ended up getting fired from my job years ago. I was doing some freelancing on the side for writing and getting into digital marketing, website building, and things like that. It was going really well. I was also in law school at the time, and then I lost my job. So I was kind of forced into it. I had a choice of either navigating the job market, which at the time was very, very difficult. So it probably would have been 6 months to a year to find something comparable to what I was doing, or I could have gone headfirst with what I was doing freelancing. So I just decided to continue with that since I already had a client base and wound up growing the firm into what it is today.
Cool. Would you consider yourself and your business to be a success?
I mean, that's subjective, obviously. I think a lot of people, based on the number of clients I have, the money you make, would say yes. Some people would say no compared to what they're doing. For me personally, yes. I mean, I live in Southern California. I take care of my family. And I mean, I live a great life. I'm able to help people expand their businesses, consult them with the knowledge I have. And some of the struggles that I may have had early on, I don't have anymore, like some of the worries about getting clients because, over time you do grow that client base to where the fears you have of entrepreneurship kind of slowly move away from there so you can focus on there. So personally for me, yes, I'm very content, I think would be the word.
Okay. Besides financial success, how do you measure success?
For me is contentment.
Okay.
Just what I said, I mean, a lot of people some people may step in to run my firm and think, oh, wow, this is just a disaster. Some people may step in and say it's the greatest thing ever. For me, I am very content. Like I said, I make what I need to make in order to live. I'm able to take care of my family. I don't have the worries of looking for a job or trying to find clients because I have a good client base. So for me, I wake up every day and I'm like, I enjoy what I'm doing. I'm very, very content. There's no specific dollar amount that can do it. There's no specific number of clients that can do it. It's all at this point a personal success. Once you're able to grow your business into what you need to survive, everything else is about contentment. Are you satisfied? Do you enjoy what you're doing? So that's how I would measure it as success.
I love it. I am, we're kind of in simpatico there because I measure success with contentment as well. That
Nice,
that's
nice.
really cool. Describe how you help your clients in a sentence or two. You talked a little bit about it sort of in general terms, but specifically looking at if you were to like do a I help my clients do what? How would you phrase how you help your clients?
So it depends on which side we're talking about. Like Wikipedia is one of our main focuses. So I help a lot of people navigate Wikipedia, which is very harsh environment to understand the rules and the guidelines to do that. So I help them navigate it so they can control their presence on Wikipedia. From the consulting side with the digital marketing, I help a lot of startups and even veteran companies reshape their digital marketing departments so that they're able to gain more clients and gain more presence online, which is where the majority of, your marketing should be focused on right now.
Yes, that's modern marketing is the digital
Yes.
marketing world.
Yes.
So for the your clients for Wikipedia, the problem you're solving for them is that they can't navigate the Wikipedia rules and regulations and environment on their own. What is the problem for your other clients, for your digital marketing clients? What problem do you solve for them?
So a lot of things that happen with digital marketing is people will go online and try to learn the best things to do for digital marketing. So if a startup comes on, there's a new entrepreneur starts a business, they may go online and figure out, how do I do digital marketing? I was having this conversation the other day as we live in an age where it's not a lack of information that's holding us back. It's having too much information that's holding us back. So there's so many things out there that tell you you should do A, you should do B. And if you don't dig deep enough, you may go down the wrong road with your digital marketing. You may throw thousands of dollars down one path where it's one that you don't really need. Every business should be unique as far as how they approach digital marketing based on what they sell, who their target audience is, everything, whether they want to bring people in from social media, where are their client bases. So my main thing is to help them focus on the specific areas of digital marketing that they should be focusing on. Because you can go online and Google, how do I do digital marketing? And it's going to give you a sea of information. The
Right.
issue is you may have a company that has a specific niche that needs to go in one direction and you're out swimming in the middle of the ocean. So they pay me to help save them money from going down all those paths. I can just put them on the right road, help them develop processes, whether they're doing social media, email drip campaigns, whatever they're going to be doing to get them on the right path, build those processes so they can bring in a team that can just, adhere to those processes and make it just like a finely tuned machine.
Nice. And ultimately, that's what we want, a finely tuned machine that brings in clients and revenue.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. My whole
yeah,
thing with clients is I don't want to be there in 6 months. My job is within that 6 months, develop a process for them so they can hire anybody to come in and do the job. They don't have to worry about reinventing things, because they can find whoever they want, whether someone not experienced, because they have the processes to teach them. They can have somebody that's very experienced that can just come in and drive, take the wheel and drive. So that's the ultimate goal. I don't want to be there in 6 months. I want to be able to build that process and let you bring in the team that can do it for you.
what comes to mind is that old story about you don't teach somebody, you don't give a person fish, you teach them how to fish. What you're
Absolutely.
doing is teaching them how
A-
to fish.
Absolutely. And
Love
you
it.
know, there's digital marketing firms that focus on doing that for companies. Like we'll do your digital marketing as well, but in the end, you're just going to keep paying us more and more money. I found that as a consultant, it's better because we get a lot of referrals, people remember us, and we still get those consultations for teams that we built for companies. So we may build a team and a great process, and then a year or two later, we get a call and they say something's not working correctly. I can come in and look. Things always change in the digital world, as you know. There may be something that was broken, something that wasn't done correctly, or something that just needs to change because times have changed. So it's always more fun to be able to come in and do that process than sitting behind a computer and doing the work day in and day out. It's easier for me to lead a team than it is to sit here and do it myself. So
Okay.
more satisfaction, more content for it.
So that differentiates you from digital marketing agencies who actually do the work. How do you differentiate yourself from other digital marketing, you know, whatever consulting, what you do? How do you differentiate yourself?
So it used to be hard if you're just going to focus on consulting or doing the digital marketing. It's kind of hard. But what we do is both. So when a client comes to us and say we need help with digital marketing, I can present them with many proposals. Here's what it would cost for us to do it in-house here, and here's the benefits and the negatives. In fact, we have some startup companies that say we don't want the process. We're a startup. We want to go for the next 2 years just building our platform like crazy, and we'll pay you to do it. Great, we have that. So we take in those clients. And then we also offer them, we can come in, consult, train your staff, your team, build that process so you can do it in-house. Some people say, okay, great, let's go with that. By offering both of those, it doesn't back us into a corner. And that's kind of what differentiates us. You don't have to necessarily look for a consultant or necessarily look for someone to do your digital marketing because we do both. Sometimes we'll come in and run that for a year for everybody and then build the process for them depending on whatever shifts happen in the market or for that specific company. So sometimes it is good to run it out for a year, spend the money with our agency, allow us to do everything internally for you, and then reevaluate after that year and say, okay, would it be more beneficial to bring people in-house or continue to contract with my agency in order to be able to do it?
Okay. You, who would you talked about you work with some startups. How would you define who is your ideal client?
So we work with everybody from solo, entrepreneurs up to Fortune 500 clients. Our ideal client is people who trust the process. So it's kind of hard to say, we want medium-sized companies, large companies, or small companies. It's a really good fit when we can find somebody that understands the process, we're able to explain it, and they can go along with our recommendations. They don't have to choose every recommendation, but the fact that they're open to the recommendations is the ideal client. We may have people that come in and say, we want you to do A, B, and C. And when we evaluate it, we think the A, B, and C isn't going to be the best fit for them. We'll recommend it to them and say, we can do what you want, but the results aren't going to be what you necessarily want. We can go forward with it, but that's not necessarily the ideal client because we want to make sure that there's success in the end. So sometimes it doesn't work out. Maybe a client wants to go in a different direction and our advice is to go in a different direction. So sometimes that doesn't work out. So the ideal client is when everybody's on the same page, everybody likes the ideas, they can feed what they're looking for, we can feed what we think is best, and we can come up with a good plan that fits everybody. We're able to give them the best of the digital marketing world. They're able to get the best return on their dollar. Because in the end, a year from now, if they don't have any return on their marketing dollar, ultimately it's going to be us that gets blamed. So
Right.
we want to make sure this is the path that we feel based on experience, based on other people in the niche, based on where the market is going, based on where digital marketing is at this current, day, because it changed from yesterday, it's going to
Changes.
change tomorrow. We think this
Mhm.
is the best forward. You don't have to go with it, but as long as everybody's open to it, we're able to kind of guide that process to where they do get a return on their investment, which ultimately makes everybody happy.
Would you be willing if you've got a prospective client who you come in and you say, we want you to be successful and get a good return on investment, and this is the way to go. And they say, absolutely not, we want to go this way. Are you willing to walk away from those prospective clients?
Yes, the biggest thing that I think entrepreneurs need to learn is how to say no.
Mm,
And I don't want to say, I don't want to make it sound like it's our way or the highway. There's
mhm,
times when clients have said, no, we don't care about your overall marketing perspective that you give us. We only want to focus on social media right now. And I tell them, we will focus on that if you want, but here is going to be the likely results. We hope to have these results, but this is the likelihood of results. And if they don't want to move forward with it, that's fine. Sometimes we don't want to move forward with it, that's fine. But in the end, I think if everybody's open, and most of the time, clients will be like, okay, we see where you're going with this. We still want to try this way first. Great, then let's do it. And we will, no doubt take on those projects. A lot of times where I'm referring to the no might not necessarily be digital marketing per se. It may come more towards the Wikipedia side where we have clients that say, we want this to be put onto our Wikipedia page. And when I look at the rules, the guidelines, the press surrounding that, there's no way we can do it. It's just going to get removed. It's going to cause a headache. It's going to get their page flagged. It's going to make it more difficult to update in the future. There's times where we've had to tell clients straight up, we can't do this for you. We appreciate the opportunity to, bid on the project. We can do other digital marketing services for you, but this specific thing that you want with Wikipedia just can't be done. And we're not going to do that as an agency because it's just going to backfire on everybody. So I would say that probably 99% of the times when we say no, it's on the Wikipedia side. Other
mhm.
times with the digital marketing side, we always give that recommendation. If people want to go with it, great. If they don't, we'll tell them we'll still go forward, but here's the likelihood of what's going on. So, and we do a lot of referrals too. We have agencies that we work with where if there's certain, I don't want to just turn a company away. If they're like, no, we absolutely want to do this. Sometimes we can do it. Sometimes we refer it out. So it all depends. Every client's going to be different. Every project's going to be different.
What I love is that you make them aware of the consequences. Here's what's probably going to happen if you go this direction. I mean, you are giving them advice, and they maybe they'll come back and prove you wrong, but probably not. They're probably going to get I mean, with all your years of experience, they're going to get that result, and they can't come back and say, well, you promised, that this and this is like, no, I
Correct.
warned you that this is what might happen. Yeah.
Yep. And we've
So
been proved wrong. I mean, we've been proved wrong, but what I don't want to have happen, and this is what I say to every client, I would rather not do this project than do it because I don't want to be on this same call 6 months from now when you're asking me, Mike, what happened? I thought we were going to get A, B, and C. And it's like, we weren't, right? We're trying to get that for you, and we're using every avenue, showing them every avenue, but we just didn't feel it was going to work. Sometimes we're proven wrong early on. It happened quite a bit, which helped us learn. It helped us open our eyes to what the possibilities are. But when it gets into it and what people want to do now, yeah, no problem. We'll gladly advise you what you can get, what you can't get, what the likelihood is, what the likelihood is not, and we'll go from there.
how do what strikes me is that you have did you have this kind of confidence to say that early in your consulting career? No.
Absolutely not. And anyone that tells you that is going to lie. It's it's really hard when you're doing digital marketing to say no to clients initially because you're getting clients and you want to show them that you are the best at what you do. Obviously, it's income, and we talked about in our phone conversation. There's pitfalls. Money is the one. You're always looking at the money to be able to sustain your business. So you're just taking on any project you can. It's very hard to say no in the beginning because you feel like you're going to lose income or lose out on things. So, no, absolutely not. It's very difficult.
How did you get the confidence to be able to say no, or to push? I mean, you're not really in many cases not necessarily saying no, but you are pushing back a little bit. And I think the tendency for especially newer self-employed consultants is to feel like, yes, sir, anything you say, client, I'll do anything you want. And they will fall flat on their face. I know I did several times when I went outside my niche and said, I'm never doing that again. I'm staying right within my sweet spot because it doesn't work out when I venture out. So how do you build the confidence? What would you say to a new self-employed consultant?
So it's kind of hard. It's something that you have to find in yourself, right? It's not really a framework that I can give you to do that. I was just thinking of the example. The one that I can remember was about 10 years ago, and it was a client for Wikipedia. And I never disclose my clients that I work with Wikipedia, but they wanted something specifically done on their Wikipedia page. And I told them, there's no way we can do this. And they said, we'll pay you even more money to do it, which of course, as you know, newer, you're like,
Be
oh, wow,
tempting.
okay.
Yeah.
And I came back to them and said, I'm sorry. It's been great working with you. I'd love to work with you. I can't do this. Because in the end, I just saw no amount of money was going to be worth the backlash that we were going to face once we did this. So I told that to client, and I was just worried I'm going to lose this income. I'm going to start losing my business. That client got back with me and said, you know what? We thought about it. We've never had anybody consult us for Wikipedia that has actually put that out there. Everybody that we've asked this have just sent us an invoice and said, this is what it's going to cost. You actually told us no, which made us actually look and think, maybe there's something with this. That client's been with me to this day. So
Yeah.
I think it was at that point, maybe that wasn't the point, but that's a good example there where I thought, okay, so if I'm honest about what can and can't happen, that's going to retain a client more than just trying and then making excuses for things that happen in the end. And you can go online and Google, and you can see that happens a lot with SEO companies where they'll promise you page one search results, in a day, and then they don't, they can't come through. They know better. They can't come through. Maybe eventually they can. So I learned, don't make promises. It's easier just to say, no, I can't make that promise. And then, I found that clients will actually hire you for saying no in those instances.
The importance of integrity.
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned when we talked last week that financial insecurity was a challenge, or financial uncertainty was a major challenge when you early on. So with that, did you ever struggle with charging what you were worth? And how did you overcome those pricing insecurities?
Yeah, pricing insecurities are big, especially with freelancers, especially in digital marketing. And it is hard. I think it all comes down to, your client base. You have to build a trusted client base that knows their value or knows your value, and you know their value. You also can't overcharge. There's companies that offer our services that just overcharge because they know people will pay it. So I think once you start doing the projects and people know your reputation, you do have that integrity, and you do start getting referrals, you can actually start charging more what it's worth. For me, it was probably about a 2-year roller coaster of determining what the fair market value was for the services we offer. I could undercut like a lot of people do on these freelance sites,
Mhm.
but I'm not able to offer as good of a service if I'm only charging a little bit because I can only focus so much time on there. On the other hand, I don't want to charge people the highest rate I can find online, regardless of how good we are, because I want to be fair with people. That keeps retention of clients. People know that they're paying a fair price for what they're getting. They're not just going off a checklist and choosing somebody. So it was a 2-year battle for me back and forth. Was this too high? And then you start losing clients. Is this too low? Okay. And the other thing too, I found that sometimes if you do undercut and just charge low in order to get a project, this goes back to the saying no. When I was charging too low for projects, I found that those were often the most difficult clients to work with because you're only charging a little bit and now they want the world, as opposed to someone that would way overpay. that's just satisfied with, a certain percentage of what you can do. So you really have to find that middle ground. And it all comes from, winning projects, not winning projects, the type of referrals you get. And that was, one thing that I kept an eye on is, not only are people using my services again, but are they telling other people to use my services? When you start getting that, that you're at a pretty good price point.
Love it. Speaking of referrals,
Yes.
those people, you get them coming back as, sort of the measure of how did you do for a client is both, do they become a client again or do they stay with you? But then also, do they refer others to you? Do you specifically ask for referrals or do you kind of wait for them to refer?
It depends. So, if you're looking at this from an agency standpoint and you have an agency and you're working with someone that may have ties with other companies or people that you can help, then absolutely you need to ask for that referral. And I don't think it's ever a detriment to ask for a referral. When you're done, you can say, "Hey, I appreciate it." One thing that I always ask people is, "Why did you use my services?" Get that feedback, and then say, "Okay, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Do you know anybody that could use these services?" And then ask them for that introduction, and then you can reach out and tell them what you have to offer. So it's never detrimental not to ask. But if you see clients that have other clients you can help, then absolutely it's important to do that. If it's a client where it's a one-off project, I don't always ask for the referral right away, but I always follow up with them later on. Maybe it's 6 months down the line. I'll ask them how things are going, give them an update on what I see. Sometimes we'll run an SEO report for people and just send it in an email and say, "Hey, I know we're not obligated anymore. We're not under agreement, but I thought I'd run this report, have a look at it. It looks like you're doing good. Reach out if you need anything." That's pretty much asking for their repeat business and their referrals, and we have the time to do that and people appreciate it. And sometimes they just do it on their own.
Cool. Love it. Love it.
One thing that I'm glad you brought that up. One caveat I want to give to young entrepreneurs and people just starting in this consulting business is, and we're talking about price pointing. One thing that's going to come up early on when you become a consultant is people offering to give you referrals in exchange for a lower rate on a project.
Okay.
This you need to say no to each and every time. I cannot name one project that I took on under those conditions where I received a referral from. So
Oh,
always make sure that if people are saying, "Hey, I'll refer you to 20 people if you can give me a discount on this," my thing is, look, let's go forward with this project. If we do a good job and you feel like referring people to that, I can give you a discount on the next project or on some residual projects, such as monitoring and maintenance throughout the years. But I always go forward with that. I never do work or make a price point based on future promises from clients because it doesn't work. And it's not just my industry either. I mean, you can go to Google and you can see a lot of consultants, a lot of business leaders that will tell you it just don't do it. It doesn't
right.
happen. So,
Right. Exactly. Now let's be speaking of discounts
yes.
in general. If a prospective client says to you, you submit a proposal with a specific price, and they come back and say, that's too expensive, or they say, can you give me a discount? How do you handle those?
It's all going to depend. I mean, if it's something where we can give a discount, which normally there's not too many times because we have a pretty good price point. A lot of times you have to cut ties. I mean, you can show them their value. You can use any type of closing pitches that you want. You can Google closing pitches for sales, and I tell them, "Hey, if it's about cost, I get it. We can remove certain things from the project to make you at a lower price point, but you may not get the same benefit." So you can show them cost benefit as you're doing that, trying
Mhm.
to, quote unquote, close, a sale, if you will. So I don't want to say just, lower your price point. Sometimes there's something in there that people may not need. And I'll be like, "Hey, no problem. Let's get rid of this because you might not need it anyway. We threw it in, presented it with you, wanted it. Let's get rid of that." Or, you know what, we may be able to lower this a little bit in order to earn their business, but it really won't be much. But always focus on the value of what you offer versus cost. A great example is there's a lot of agencies out there that do Wikipedia now because it's a very unique type of consulting. But there's only, I would say, 4 or 5 companies such as myself that can do it with a high proficiency, who know the rules. They know exactly what's going on there. But there's dozens, probably 50 companies out there that offer it. And occasionally I will get an email that says, hey, I got a quote from somebody that said they can do it for, X amount, which is a tenth of what I'm, proposing to them. I'm always polite with them and say, hey, look, I understand if it's about cost and you want to go with that person, please do. Just note, this is like surgery. You're paying a surgeon to do this project as opposed to paying somebody who you just met that has a chainsaw that's going to do the surgery for you. There's going to be difference in the quality you get. So always make sure that they understand your quality.
Okay. And I love what you said. I think this is really important for new consultants. You don't, when somebody objects to the price, you
Absolutely
say,
not. Never
yeah,
win somebody based on the cost. No.
right. Well, and you say, but you also you say we could, if the cost is really an issue, we can take this or this out, but you won't get the same results. But you don't give them a discount, you give them a way to kind of win by reducing the cost of the project by taking something out of the proposal rather than rolling over and saying, like acting like a dog and say, yes, I'll give you anything you want if you scratch my
Correct.
belly. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
And in reality, you can't do that for them because the cost that you have as an agency to do that stuff, you're not going to make any money. It's not going to motivate you. It's not going to make you want to do a good job. There's agencies out there that will work with such a fine line there, but they're just churning their wheels. They're not really helping their clients. They're just going on cookie cutter type metrics instead of actually evaluating what's happening, in the current market with current digital marketing and what they need to do for people. So it is always about quality. And when I say taking things off the table, it's not like selling a car where I say, okay, I'll give you the car, but I won't give you the wheels. The best example I can say is people will say, hey, we want an overall online strategy. We're just starting out, so we want a website, social media, email marketing. And, I present them with a quote and they're like, wow, this is more than what we expected it to be. Now, first of all, keep in mind that that quote is comparable to a lot of agencies and it's not on the high end and it's definitely not on the low end. So to them, it's not about the value, it's about the cost, right? If it's about the value and you don't see our value, you want that's something different, but they see the value. It's just they actually can't do that cost. We may come in and say, okay, so you're a new company. Let's first of all start with your website and email list. Let's do that and let's get that going for 6 months. We'll create blog content and we'll start your social media channels, but we won't really push anything on social media. And then in 6 months, we can actually implement the social media aspect of it. And that also gives them time to see your value as well. So you can actually start on some of the portion of the project that you would be doing. They can see the value and say, okay, it is worth it. We are making money based on the initial part, so let's go ahead and put the money into the other part of the project. So it's always a good thing to do. So it's not necessarily like, okay, I'm only going to build a website for you and you're on your own. I always want to offer them some type of value because it makes no sense for me just to build the cornerstone for them and then, okay, we can't do anything else for you.
right, right. Because the website alone is probably not going to do it.
Correct.
It's like selling them the car without the wheels.
Absolutely.
Maybe selling them, yeah. I was thinking for another analogy, but
Yeah.
you grew your business from what, 10,000 to 6 figures in a year?
Yeah, so when I started off, it was mainly just freelancing, going on freelance websites and picking up, projects from Freelancer or Upwork. Upwork, I don't remember what it was called at the time, but it was another freelance site. Just picking up projects here and there. And I think my first year I was gonna make maybe ten to $15,000 on the side. I started getting referrals like crazy because of what we offered specifically in the Wikipedia niche. And so, right when I lost my job and had to focus on it full time, that first year was 6 figures. I mean, it grew very, very rapidly. Now, Over the next few years, there were struggles back and forth because, of course, you get this enormous amount of client base, and initially you don't necessarily have the skills to be able to retain them. And when I
Mhm.
say retain them, I'm not talking about just keeping them in a cage. To retain a customer, you have to constantly offer them value. You have to constantly reach out to them. You have to constantly be in touch with them. You have to constantly do things for them to show them what your worth is. So a lot of those things in the beginning weren't. So initially you'll lose clients because you don't know how to do the communication, how to see what they want. You're just, you're kind of tunnel focused. So there was some ups and downs for a few years after that, but then it started slowly coming back to where it is now.
Okay. What can you think of were there any specific strategies that come to mind that really accelerated your growth when you went kind of full time and that first year when you went straight to fix six figures?
Yeah, no, focus and don't stop. You have to focus on what you believe is going to be successful, whether you're going to be outreaching for more clients, whether you're doing advertising for clients, whether you're asking for referrals, whether you're focusing 100% on current clients, and stay focused on that. Don't navigate one way or another. A lot of times as a new entrepreneur, you're going to think, okay, I'm going to do outreach. I'm going to go to LinkedIn and outreach for clients. And you may do that for a few weeks and not really get a good return and think, oh, this is a failure. I'm going to go to something else. No, if you've done the research and that's where your clientele are and that's where you need to be, that's what you need to do. Focus on it, do it, double down, spend your time on it until you have absolutely exhausted it. Because if that's where the clientele is, that's where you're going to get your client. Now, you may have to change your approach on how you reach out or things you may say in order to get their attention to be able to tell them what you offer. But don't go all over the board. You need to focus on what you believe is going to turn your company around. And that's what did it for me. One of the things that I did was outreach to specific industries. That's what I wanted to focus on. I was helping Wikipedia for everybody. And then I said, okay, where are the majority of my clients coming from? And there were two industries where they were coming from. And I said, well, obviously, it's doing good for these industries. I have people that can testify to me being good in these industries. These are the two I'm going to focus on. So I took all my resources into those two industries and it helped double the business. I mean, within a year, it was double. So then I'm still getting the other business off of other referrals, but they weren't the ones that I was targeting. So um, for those who don't know Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a good person to listen to, a lot of good advice. And one thing that he said that always resonates with me is double down on what you know. And that's what I would say apply to everybody. If you're making money, like a digital marketing firm, if you're making money on social media, helping people with social media, that's where you need to focus and double down with your talents there. You can always move into things like website building, search engine optimization. But if this is where you're getting clientele and this is where you're focused on, that's where you need to go. So that's also why Wikipedia for the first, I would say 7, 8 years was the majority of my business because that's where we doubled down on. That's where the clientele was, that's where our expertise was. And then we were able to kind of branch out more of the consulting, more of the website building and things like that as I built my team around it. But double down on what you know. That's where the money is, that's where you go for it.
What I'm also hearing, and what really impressed me when we talked last week, is that defining your niche. And not only did you define your niche early on as Wikipedia, but then you defined it even further into two industries. I hear so many self-employed consultants that basically say, I don't want to limit myself, and what to me, the way you limit yourself is trying to be everything to everybody because you are nothing to anybody when you are spread that thin, when you're trying to be jack of all trades. You are such a shining example of taking a niche and then further refining it to the point that, maybe someone else would say, that's a little too narrow, but you know that it's not too narrow. So, how did you identify and develop this niche to start?
So a lot of times you're going to find that the niche will identify itself for you. where you're not even searching for it. For me, it was simple. I just looked on paper and said, where are my clients coming from? Right? And what industries are they in? Where am I getting these referrals? Where's my satisfied client base? And a lot of times it'll just point itself out to you. Otherwise, like if you're a consultant, you're going to find that a lot of consultants are already coming from a field. Maybe they're an attorney, maybe they're in real estate, maybe they're, a CPA. They already have a niche. They're already an expert in a specific field. So go ahead and focus on that specifically. It doesn't necessarily have to be, okay, here's a target group. I want to target them because I think I can make a lot of money for them. Identify something you know and you're familiar with and do it. Another example that I do is I have an in the real estate market through, friends, family members. So I did a digital course, which is basically residual income, passive income.
Mhm.
I focused it on digital marketing for real estate agents because I knew how to apply digital marketing specifically for real estate agents. So I could make a course that says, hey, here's all the digital marketing, here's the C. But when I started focusing specifically on real estate market for brokers, agents, that's where I started getting more people to sign up for the course as opposed to just a generic one because these are specific people I could focus on. I knew that. Also, one for attorneys. I have a law degree, so it was very easy for me to apply that to digital marketing and tell attorneys and law firms, hey, you're looking for digital marketing. I consult with a lot of them, but hey, here's a class you can do. Bingo, there it is. You can learn everything you need to from this class if you want to. So I think a lot of times you're already going to be in that specific market. You know the
Mhm.
people to reach out to, you know where they need the help and assistance. Sometimes it will come to you, meaning after you're in it for a while, you may notice a specific niche that's just bubbling up, needing your services more and more.
Okay, so listen to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, I like that. That to me that is so important, and I especially loved your example of how you went so narrow. When I first started consulting, I told an old boss that I was going to focus specifically in the housewares industry, which was my niche for over 35 years. He told me it was too small a niche.
Yeah.
But my claim, I mean, what the reason I was able to be successful in that industry is I had no competition. It was too narrow a niche for the big market research firms.
Yep.
And after a couple years, I knew the industry better than my clients did who were in the industry, but I knew it from a different viewpoint. I knew it from a broader viewpoint. And it made me, that was my key point of differentiation, was being in a really narrow niche.
That's great. And I bet you had more success and the same amount of money with a few clients in that niche than you would have been to shotgun it out to 20 different niche and trying to just pick up, small projects on the way. I think that's excellent approach of what you did.
Yeah, like your approach.
Mm,
Stick to it. I want to switch to some mindset stuff.
yes.
Many consultants face self doubt and imposter syndrome. Was this something you experienced? And if so, what strategies helped you to overcome these mental barriers?
Yeah, it absolutely does. It affects everybody. I don't think anyone comes in and says, I'm going to be a success and then not have this along the way because you're always going to second guess yourself once the river starts flowing, once you're moving forward, you start looking left and right, going, where am I at? There's no real specific formula other than just knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you keep paddling. My mindset was I'm going to do this until I fail. This is what I have. If I fail and lose everything, fine. I've started over before. I'm going to start over again. But I kept telling myself I would rather fail at this than look back and wish I would have failed because I think that would have been a big regret right now at 48, looking back 15 years, going, man, if I would have only started this when I was in my early 30s, I wonder what would have happened. It's
Mhm.
easier to look back and say, hey, I tried this and it absolute disaster. I went broke, bankrupt, everything, and had to start off, working for a corporation again. So I think that's one thing that helped me. Just focus for what I can tell, new people starting off. If you focus, if you keep moving forward, there is light. A lot of people will quit and give up. The other thing you got to think of is when you're in a mindset, let's say you've been doing this for a year or 2 years and you're thinking, this just isn't working out. I want to quit. You're not the only person thinking that. There are thousands of other people that are doing the exact same thing as you are doing, and they have that same mindset of maybe I should quit, maybe I should give up. And guess what? If you don't, you're going to have 2,000 people get out of the market and you're going to be further ahead of anyone else. It's kind of like climbing a ladder. Some people on their way up, they just get tired or stressed. They're like, I don't even want to climb anymore. No problem. Just move to the right, move to the left, climb around them, let them have their space, but keep moving forward. And you will eventually succeed if you have a process, you have a goal in mind, and you keep focusing on that goal and you keep working towards that goal, you will get there.
I love that point. I found a startling statistic the other day that 80% of self-employed consultants fail within the first 2 years.
Yep.
To your point, if you're a self-employed consultant and you just keep going and you keep pushing forward, at some point, everybody else is going to drop away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it gets stressful. Don't get me wrong. There's days when you're going to wake up, think, why am I here? I just don't want to do it today. Do it. I know it sounds like I'm saying just turn the light switch on. It's something internally that you've got to find that's going to give you the motivation to do that. But if you do that and you do wake up and think, I don't want to get on my email today, I don't want to go to LinkedIn, I don't want to be on a podcast, whatever it is, do it. If you can find that switch in you to flip that on and keep going forward, you will succeed. A lot of people that go after 2 years, they just sit around, they're not doing anything. So again, they're sitting on that rung. No problem. Let them sit there. You're fine, but keep moving forward. So it's not just about time, it's absolutely what you're doing with that time.
How did you overcome those early thoughts of, you know, I mean, did you ever think, who am I to be doing this? And how am I going to, I mean, do I have credibility? How did you overcome those? Because
I
those
mean,
are,
I still do at times. Early on, it was, for me, it's probably a little different for others because I had nothing else. So it's like I have to have the credibility. I have to learn today. If I don't know something, I have to go out and figure out how to do it. I have to get good at it. I have to be the best at it. So my motivation was it's like I jumped out of a plane. I'm not in the plane wondering whether or not I want to jump. I mean, I was pushed out. I'm falling to the ground. I have to learn how to operate that parachute. So for me, while it was tough, I couldn't look back. So it's again, it's kind of different. For others, you just have to know that, you can look back in regrets, or you can move forward and say, hey, I tried and failed. It was great. No regrets doing it, but it didn't work out.
I like that. I tend to like to kind of, when I'm making decisions, it's like, how am I going to feel on my deathbed decades?
Yes.
Am I going to
Yes.
look back and say, I wish I had? Or am I going to look back and say, I'm glad I did? Even if something
Love it.
fails, I'm
I
glad
love
I
it.
did. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I always ask people, if you died today, would you be happy with what you accomplished? 99% of people will say, no, well, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done it. Go do it. Go do it. You like you said, you don't want to be on your deathbed and look back and regret not doing something. I would rather regret doing something than regret not doing something. I would rather look back and go, oh, I can't believe I wasted 10 years on that business. Could have done something else than looking back going, I wonder what would have happened if I spent 10 years on that business.
Yeah. If I tried it,
Yeah. Yes,
what
that's a
could it
great way
be?
to look at it. I love it.
Yeah. How do you handle rejections or projects that turn into nightmares? How do you handle that?
Rejections used to be tough. Um, Again, it makes you feel like you're not worthy, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here, maybe I'm not the person to do this.
Mhm.
It's the successes that I think you focus on as opposed to the rejections. You know, once you have a few successful projects under your belt, you can always look to those and say, I've done this. I've done this a million times. I know how to do it. I'm very successful at it. So maybe this just didn't work out. You also have to use those types of failures, the failed projects, the projects that go on and back and forth. You need to dissect those. I think a lot of people go, oh, this is a failure. I'm glad I'm done with that project. I'm now going to focus over here. I love to focus on the disasters because you need to figure out what went wrong. Was it something on your end, a process that you can change? Again, maybe it's a client that you should have said no to. Maybe it wasn't a good fit for both of you, one or the other. You need to look at those processes. So, just like I was saying earlier, you need to ask people why they decided to use you, right? Because you'll say, hey, why did you decide to use it? Maybe it was price point, maybe it was your communication, maybe it was the value in it or whatever. You also need to ask people why they didn't use you, right?
Mm.
So if someone says, hey, I appreciate you, we're not going to move forward, say, no problem. You know, I appreciate the time. For future, for my own feedback, could you please allow, or tell me what was the main thing that was your concern, right? Even if you get ghosted on a lot of projects, which you will, you know, from experience, you'll send out quotes to people and you'll follow up 3 or 4 times and never hear back. It's pretty much they're not going to use your business. No problem. I send one final email. Hey, I appreciate it. I understand you're probably going another route with this. If you could just help me out for my benefit for future projects with others, can you tell me what it was that allowed you to choose another provider over us? And if you get that feedback, hang on to it. It helps you move past those. So I think some of those failures are good to have. They hit hard. They do hit hard, especially in the beginning, because you think, oh my God, but you learn that those failures always lead to future successes.
There are always lessons to be learned in the failure.
Yep.
Yeah. I love the advice of asking why they didn't go with you. I think a lot of consultants are afraid to ask that,
Yeah.
and because, and that comes back to insecurity of, you know, what are they going to say? And people pleasing, which is a big issue.
Yes.
That means they didn't like me. But if you look at it as feedback that's going to make me better, able to serve clients in the future, then it's a whole different way to frame them saying no.
Yeah, correct. Don't take rejection as something negative. Rejection is could be anything. Someone could have been having a bad day. Maybe they just felt like rejecting it. Maybe they didn't like your personality. Okay, I get that. You know, I'm not for everyone. Other people aren't for everyone. Maybe it's something with your products or services that you need to pivot from. In which case, if you don't pivot, you will start losing a lot of business. I'll give you a great example from probably 10 years ago where I replied to someone and said, hey, can you know basically let me know why you didn't use my business? And the gentleman came back and says, you know, when you replied to my initial email, you didn't even use my first name. You didn't even say thank you for reaching out. And initially I thought, how dare him criticize me like that? I at least replied to his email and answered all his questions. But then I stopped and looked for a minute and I'm like, oh, that does look pretty crappy. How would I feel if now first names on everything? I address people properly because it's respectful. You know, I didn't realize that that was being disrespectful to this person. And here I had lost business from somebody because I wasn't being respectful. Think of the business I would have lost in the last 10 years had I continued with that pattern. So that one rejection has helped me understand, you know what you do. It doesn't matter how busy you are, take the time to show people respect, just like they would respect you. So sometimes those rejections are, again, they're good for you.
Old. Yeah. Yeah. One last question.
Yes.
If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice when you started consulting, what would it be?
Wow. That's a great question. Great question. I think the best thing is don't get distracted. And I think that distraction comes from fear. The distraction may come from prizes. You may see something specific that you may want to chase that looks more lucrative in your niche or something like that. I just say don't get distracted on what you're doing. If you get distracted, start looking left or right, pivoting too much from what your business plan is, you're more likely going to fail. Go and exhaust whatever your plan is, exhaust that before you pivot one way or another. So don't let rejection distract you. Don't let other people and what they're doing distract you. Don't let money distract you. Don't let anything distract you.
And don't let bright, shiny object syndrome.
Of course. Again, you may chase the money, which is good, but chase good money, chase good projects. Don't just chase money for the sake of chasing money, because you're going to be in a just a churn. You're going to be getting churned like butter over and over and over. And it's not going to be beneficial to you or your clients. So focus and don't get distracted. Don't let things like sleep or TV get distracted. You may find a time where you're like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to watch another episode of my show. No, have a schedule. You want to watch TV? That's great. Have a schedule where you sit down and do it, but focus on everything else that you need to do. Otherwise, it's only your fault if you look back and you fail. Say, what could I have done differently? You could have not gotten distracted. You could have focused on what you were supposed to do.
Right. Yeah, distraction. This
Uh,
has been so good. I mean, we could talk for hours,
I
but
know.
there's so many nuggets in what you've talked about today that I hope that self-employed consultants who listen to this podcast really take time and absorb the wisdom that you have shared with us today. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and that's a wrap for today.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Thriving Through. I hope today's conversation has given you not just inspiration, but practical, actionable insights that you can apply to your own consulting journey. Remember, building a thriving consulting practice isn't about following someone else's blueprint perfectly. It's about finding your own path and staying true to your vision while learning from those who've walked similar roads. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Share your biggest takeaway on LinkedIn and tag me. Leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps other independent consultants find our community and join this conversation. And don't forget to hit subscribe to ensure you never miss an episode. Each week, we'll bring you more honest conversations and practical strategies to help you build a consulting business that works for you. Until next time, keep pushing forward, stay curious, and remember, you're not just surviving in consulting, you're thriving through it.